And now it's time for Fabulous Film and Friends. Was there ever an era in cinema history when the obsession with cars, speed, and outrunning the law, whether you were a hick, a hippie, or a world-weary urbanite, captured the public's imagination more than early 1970s? That's what we aim to ponder on this, our 106th episode of the Triple F, as we discuss not one, not two, but three powerhouse mainstream movies of muscle car mayhem, starting with 1971's Vanishing Point, directed by Richard C. Sarafian, and starring Barry Newman, Dean Jagger, Paul Koslo, Severn Darden, Anthony James, John Amos, and Cleavon Little. Followed by 1974's Gone in 60 Seconds, directed and starring the great HB Halicki, his brother Ron, Jerry Daugirda, and Marion Busia. And topped off with Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, also released in 74, directed by John Hough, and starring Peter Fonda, Susan George, Adam Roarke, Roddy McDowell, and Vic Morrow. My guests this week are car and driving averse bookworm Roseanne Caputi, and the actor, photographer, and funny man who heavily encouraged this topic of road-burning revelry, a man who spent his formative years at the local theater in Ketchikan, Alaska, with a dazed smile on his face while his chin and his elbows rested on the seat in front of him, whether there was someone seated in front of him or not. Gordon Alex Robertson.
Thank you.
Alex, this is your show. Warm us up with your best Vic Morrow calling in an imaginary squad car maze.
God. Oh my gosh, Gino. All right. When you want to go right, go left. When you want to go left, go straight. When you want to go straight, don't even bother. Okay? Now, buzz off. Okay, there. That's my Vic Morrow.
Don't apologize. You sound just like him.
Well, God bless Vic Morrow, you know,
For sure.
and the eerie foreshadowing in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Tough.
Okay, before we cue the getaway banjo music and yell yeehaw or kiss my grits, the synopses. In Vanishing Point, Kowalski, a non-vet and former cop turned delivery driver, is tasked with transporting a 1970 Dodge Challenger RT from Colorado to San Francisco in record time. As he speeds across the desert, he becomes a symbol of freedom and defiance, pursued by a relentless law enforcement apparatus. In Gone in 60 Seconds, Maindrian Pace, an insurance adjuster and skilled car thief, is tasked with stealing 50 cars in a single night for a dangerous crime syndicate. As the clock ticks down, Pace races against time and evades the law in every possible manner to complete his impressive score. Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, after pulling off a daring yet disturbing home invasion and supermarket safe heist, two over-the-hill race car drivers, Larry and Deke, hit the California highways while on the run from John Law. They run into a setback when they are joined by Mary, a feisty and free-spirited former one-night stand of Larry's. The oddball trio then speed through the California Delta backroads, pursued by the shrewd and determined Captain Everett Franklin. Okay, which film laps the others in the Grand Prix and stands as an indelible classic? Or do all three stand as champions? Find out. All right, Alex, here you go. You called it. It's your big nostalgia trip. Tell me rank the films for me in order of love.
The Vanishing Point. Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, Gone in 60 Seconds. That's my order. Thank you, folks. You've been wonderful.
Roseanne Caputi, what'd you think? Rank them.
This is, I don't know if this is going to work. I think this is what I think. Gone in 60 Seconds, Vanishing Point, and Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry.
Oh,
Interesting.
and I've got Vanishing Point, Gone in 60 Seconds, Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. All right, Alex.
Yes, Gino.
I'm leaving it up to you. What do you love about these films? Take us back. Take us back to the Yukon Theater in Ketchikan.
Actually, it was either the Coliseum or the Revilla. That was your choice. The Coliseum was more the luxury theater, and it was at that time, I think it was $1 for a double feature. Scandalous when it went to $1. And thank goodness the Revilla was 75 cents, but you usually had to deal with creaking old wood.
Drunks and flies.
Drunks and flies and the possibility of rats running across the floor. But you know what? It didn't matter. You were there for the experience. I saw all three movies the same year, 8th grade. I saw the first two, Vanishing Point and Dirty Mary Crazy Larry, as a double feature, which apparently they made the rounds when I was, I think it was fall of 75. And then in the spring of 76, we saw Gone in 60 Seconds. So we were kids, we were boys, we were into that sort of thing. You know, we wanted the car wrecks. We wanted the visceral sensation of seeing cars crash. Although with the first two movies, there was something different. It wasn't just something. I mean, it was, even my 14-year-old mind understood that this is different. You know, I couldn't put a finger on it, but it wasn't just done purely for the sake of smashing up cars. There was something that, you know.
That's
yes,
my question. No, like when we talk about these movies, like especially these car movies, 70s car movies that are like, I guess by and large, the sort of modern Western at that time. What are we talking about?
That's a good question.
Freedom.
I mean,
freedom.
But it's more than that. There's something
but
different
the
because
muscle
they
car is
don't
like the
attain
gun.
freedom.
There was something about one of the things that was unique in the 60s, starting in the 60s, when these manufacturers started producing lighter frames with bigger motors, the muscle car, the beginning of the muscle car. You know, now you've got these cars that you know, if you modify them, you can, I mean, maybe even off the showroom floor, they'll zip right out the door. But you know,
that's part of the problem too. Like Chevy, Dodge, Ford. This is corporate. So all this freedom is like brought to us by corporations.
Well, therein lies the irony.
Yeah, and so
but there was something, I don't know. There was something, I don't know what it was about Kowalski that seemed so identifiable to somebody like me. A big mane of bushy hair, which when I was that age, my hair would grow out to some, uncontrollable mess.
To say nothing of those mutton chops.
No, the mutton chops, which I could never achieve.
And your love for uppers.
And uppers, yes. My love for uppers and blonde women on motorcycles.
Yeah, and questionable choices with other races. What? Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, it was there. But it was, I don't know. It was just something different. I can't say what it was, but I went back more than once to see that movie, to see both movies. I mean, that was sort of my gauge when I was that age. If I liked something, I couldn't identify what it was, I'd sneak out and go and see it again if I had a chance.
What did it make you think about? Besides cars?
Putting myself in that position and then saying, well, what would I do to get past the bulldozers? What would I do that Kowalski couldn't do? Maybe that was a big part of it. Like, I want to rewrite the story. I want Kowalski to live, in my 14-year-old mind.
Do you feel the same about Peter Fonda and company?
I don't know if I felt it as the way I did.
I was happy when they died.
Yeah, I don't think I was happy. I was more shocked. But watching it again, it was like that was really their only out. There was no way, and I really feel like.
But they don't choose it. They just get smashed like morons.
Smashed by a train.
But I just feel like
isn't life absurd?
It's absurd, but the choices they make, I will argue and say that starting at the beginning of the movie, the die was cast. It's like they opened Pandora's box and now they have to pay the price.
I don't feel like their existence is that important to be like linked with destiny, though.
In what way? No,
I feel like all three characters are really negligible. So I don't feel like the pull of destiny when it comes to them.
I wonder though too, in context, say if you're framing the 60s, or like let's say go back to the 60s and take Peter Fonda's Captain America. The idealistic young man that's going out to find the American dream.
Yeah, but that's like Song of the Open Road. Like that
is the song. It is.
So like to me, Easy Rider. Yeah, but you feel his connection with destiny and the land and all these things from the beginning of that film. Like, say what you will, that it's some hippie film, but it has all these themes and qualities from the very beginning. And I don't feel that with Dirty Crazy Larry.
No, and I wouldn't argue that. I mean, it's, and I don't know if it was something deliberate on Peter Fonda's part, because remember, toward the very end of the movie, Easy Rider, I know I'm using Easy Rider, but when Billy says we did it, we made it, and he goes, no, we blew it, man. I mean, after all of this, so,
sure.
And they're, they become victims of the system they're trying to break free from. Whereas by this time with Larry, it's almost just something, whatever. I'm going to thumb my nose. I don't care. I'm in it for myself. Forget about the idealistic whatever. Everything.
They don't have any idealism from the beginning. It's just like two sad sacks trying to get, like, even their robbery, even though it's like, you could say, like, Gone in 60 Seconds, they're robbing from the rich. But in the Dirty Mary Crazy Larry, it's just to get back to, like, racing. Like, it's not even an ideal.
No, and that's I think we're in, why these people are so borderline detestable, if not absolutely detestable, at least Deke and Larry, because they rob a grocery store. They rob one of their own people.
Sure.
They rob a guy that's out just making an honest living. It's not like Bonnie and Clyde, where they're stealing from the banks who, are running people out of business off their farms. They're almost as if there is no prejudice.
So you're saying it's a commentary on the failure of the hippie movement?
I think it is.
How?
I do. I think you're heading into the cynicism of the 70s. I think as if, we had these ideas, we wanted to bring love and peace to the world.
I don't see them as representing that at all.
Because I'm just a lunkhead. I need to be told a little bit what to think. I need some sort of tone. I need something. I'm just not gauging it from Peter Fonda and Susan George. They just seem, they just seem a little underwritten to me. I don't know that they're just dumb shits. They're not like, let's say, Eric Stoltz and Rosanna Arquette in Pulp Fiction, where you're just dealing with these sort of nihilistic, heroin-addicted dipshits.
Where or Mickey and Mallory and Natural Born Killers. Or something.
You're just feeling right. I said, and I thought about Natural Born Killers when I saw this film, because they at least give you enough backstory and enough idea of, like, okay, they are a creation of the system that is right now in 1994. But in this film, I got no gauge on them whatsoever, other than he's kind of laughing like a moron, which I always appreciate. He's like, he's sort of, he has that some mirthless laugh of the insane. But that's about it. That's the only thing Peter Fonda is giving me.
And I wouldn't say they even bring it out in each other. They seem to be like already that. Deke doesn't sort of like balance it out, or even they do seem like three underwritten characters stuck in a car. And then I just wonder, okay, representing what? They go from one place to another. And so Vic Morrow, his motivations are really murky. And so but then I keep thinking, okay, like the motivations in general in these films, I'm just like, okay, we're obviously in the era of anti-cop, anti-authority. So that's why I was talking earlier about like liminal spaces or whatever. I'm like, so we are anti-authority, but to what end? And I feel like that's the biggest question that these three films like ask, is just like, okay, if we aren't this anymore, what are we?
And maybe that is part of the commentary in Dirty Mary Crazy Larry. They just don't know.
But I don't think Kowalski knows either.
Yeah, I mean,
disagree there.
Well,
why? Who is
the thing is, Kowalski's in pursuit because he's speeding on the freeway and causes that drag or that Jaguar to crash.
Right.
So it starts with him like, why are we rooting for Kowalski?
Right. We're back to Top Gun, which is Maverick. You are unsafe.
So he's okay. At least with Kowalski, we are learning that he's a non-vet and he's a cop, and we learn enough, but he's still at fault. You know, he's still recklessly at fault. He's on uppers.
Right. He's on
the dolls.
We see at least like where he came from, but what is he representing going forward? As he drives into that barrier, what is Kowalski driving forward? What does this represent as he's like driving into this barrier? It's not like Max, in Mad Max or something where it's just like it becomes then. First it's about revenge and then it is about survival at any cost. That's not what he is. So I do feel this, like, what's so interesting, these movies have these outward manifestations of masculinity with all these muscle cars, but internally it's this sort of ambiguous, morally ambivalent, confusing mess. If you ask me, these movies are like the Vatican II of genre films or something. And it didn't lead anywhere.
Well, yes, it did, Roseanne. It led to Smokey
Tom
and the
Cruise
Bandit.
dancing in his own. Okay.
Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit, fine.
Well,
where they had to make it
vaudeville.
A comedy. Right.
It's
I was
a
like, where
vaudeville
they had to
version
make
of it.
it comedy.
But we do have to stop and analyze what is going on in the 70s, because this is a major theme. It's taken seriously, and then at the end of the era, we finish with Dukes of Hazzard. So this theme runs through the entire decade.
That's why I'm saying, like, what are we talking about when we're talking about these movies?
Well, maybe in context of the arc of the 70s, starting with The Vanishing Point, which is, within 71? A couple of years, 71.
Yeah.
So still fresh with the 60s in our minds. The 60s.
But are they relinquishing blame? Are they the finger pointing Gen Z, Gen Alphas of today? It's the same. I get the same read on this generation as I did.
It's possible.
It's like Gone in 60 Seconds felt with the kids, with the black lowriders, felt not too dissimilar to today. I felt like, wow, the 70s really are this pivotal point where we haven't grown up. We've really stayed in this sort of
didn't find an answer. That's the thing. Like what we know is we're no longer satisfied with cops, the government, even
authority,
systems,
there's structure,
systems, racial segregation, that kind of stuff, right? But we don't. So even these guys, these white men, don't exactly know how to not be racist and sexist and that kind of thing, and yet they know they want to be moving towards it.
Towards what? The racial equality?
Yes.
So, but hold on. Kowalski he's not racist. I mean,
I'm saying the films themselves, like, they are promoting racial integration for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like the dated way they're doing it shows sort of the clunky relationship. I'm just saying. I'm saying it's all part of it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying they're moving towards.
I still say the 70s
equality.
is more honest than today.
Fine. I totally agree. But I'm just saying they seem to be moving towards this.
Right. But they start on the flawed premise that the hero is right. And he's not.
Yeah.
He's not, because he's still pushing the limits with the guy. Okay, the guy in the Jaguar is an asshole. But Kowalski takes it to the point where he nearly kills him. Right. And then the cops are chasing him. And so I'm like, okay, so Kowalski does start at a point of he's in the wrong. And
he's the closest one to being right, which is so funny. Like, of all three. Like, all three are wrong, and yet there are heroes. So again,
I don't know if
that ties in all three movies.
I don't know if Gone in 60 Seconds is a hero. Well, I can't go along with that.
Well, no, but I'm just saying from the perspective of the film.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Mandrian Pace seems to be what will eventually become
the worst fucking name.
Let's just say that. What a great name, right? If let's assume
Gilbrock
that Deke
Benton,
Gilbrock Benton, Chest Rockwell,
like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, really,
Dirk
what the
Smack,
hell?
Whatever.
Doesn't flow out of anyone's mouth, but anyway.
I think think of the director, HB Halicki. I think he
just
has a thing for that.
Right,
he's just some kind of
all right, go
fixture.
ahead.
So
Alex,
I think I think in a sense, you're answering it because these guys don't. Maybe they don't have that definite. Somehow, the idealism, there was an end game to what we wanted to do. Kowalski, maybe at one time, I'm going to serve my country. I'm going to serve my God, my country. It's going to be John Wayne at Iwo Jima, but you're fighting an entirely different war, and you're coming back, many men coming back broken, cynical, broken physically, broken emotionally.
But he's not Billy Jack. He's not pushed to it by the man. He causes it. It's his fault. That's my issue with all three films. It's their fault.
Okay, so he causes it. He causes it, and maybe that's just the part of the problem. You've got these guys that have like this inarticulate rage within them. They don't know what to do with it.
But it's funny because the films don't articulate it either. So the cars are these extensions of these men.
Which is possible. I mean, maybe that was something that they were trying to do. This becomes the vehicle, no pun intended, of whatever it is that they're dealing with, their rage. I mean, their identity is in the Challenger. Their identity is in Eleanor. Their identity is in whatever car they're driving. Because that seemed to be a theme of the 70s. Sure. That idea of these things that were changing, whether it was a period piece like The Ballad of Cable Hogue. You're seeing this bygone era. I know it's crazy, but the old ways, and it's just the people that somehow weren't prepared for it. I don't know.
Well, when are you ever prepared for it? But again, this idea that this is how men are dealing with it really became this Dukes of Hazzard and Burt Reynolds. Just like this became so popular that those are kind of like the Walmart versions of Vanishing Point.
Yeah, but don't you find it funny though? Yes, so that maybe these are movies that are searching for men. What is a man? What really is a man?
I think men are searching for men.
Men are searching for men. So we settle on Smokey. We settle on the Bandit. We settle on Bo and whoever.
Those answers are slightly easier than what Kowalski potentially represents, which is...
Exactly. It's almost as if, let's just have a good time.
Yeah.
Forget all that other heady stuff. Forget all the thinking and whatnot.
But it's still there.
It's
still you're not going to push Burt Reynolds around. You're not going to tell Burt Reynolds what to do. It's still it basically boils down to that. And Kowalski,
even if I'm wrong, you're not going to tell me what to do. That's Kowalski
remember,
for sure.
The 70s became known as the me generation or the me decade.
Right.
Sure.
And I think we see that beginning in these three movies, where forget about being altruistic, forget about being helping my fellow man, forget about working for the greater good of community, of our tribe, of our whatever.
Okay, so there's Kowalski.
I'm out to grab what I want.
Right, I think there's Kowalski who's given up because the system doesn't work. He tried. He played it their way. He went to Vietnam. He tried to follow the rules. It was corrupt. So I like that one the best. At least it had a tangible reason. I mean, I still think, in the end, he started all the crap. So I don't quite get. I mean, that's a missing link, but whatever. You could spin it to where it wasn't his fault, and then I get it.
Or that it is his fault, and he does not give a fuck.
Right.
Like he doesn't give a fuck that it's his fault, because even when things aren't his fault, he gets fired from the police force. Right. He loses a war, whatever.
Right.
So
so Kowalski's he's the most tangibly interesting to me. Gone in 60 Seconds. I'm actually curious, Roseanne, why did you like it the best? Because I was about to give up on it until the chase. I was just about to go, the hell with this. This is
in all honesty, of the three, Kowalski, I felt like Vanishing Point, and you both can get mad at me for this, and I can understand that, doesn't quite seal the deal. I feel like it promises more. So therefore, when it delivers at the end, I felt a little bit more, I forget the feeling you've been cheated, like that kind of feeling, as opposed to Gone in 60 Seconds, which was just this is just shifted straight into a car movie, and it's got a DJ. It's got, it's still got a lot of the elements of Vanishing Point. It's got people on the, schmoes on the street. It's got race, and it's got a secretary named /crook/ girl named Pumpkin, which is awesome. Yeah. And then him just driving in that wig with that mustache. So I was like, honestly, I feel like this is the most satisfying. Like, it doesn't raise as many questions as Vanishing Point, and has a much more like just sort of satisfying, middle of the road, I'll have 2 hot dogs with mustard and ketchup kind of feeling.
I would have to agree with that.
And
I mean,
so,
that, that does.
I'd say I don't know. I got to give credit. That 2 hot dogs, that's a 5 hot dog with sauerkraut and relish and the works. I mean, that's the biggest. That's the biggest car chase I've ever seen.
No, it actually is interesting, and I'm not some like car chase nerd for God's sake, and I was like,
it's my least favorite genre.
Yeah.
But it's the audacity in which he put that movie together. Sure. And that scene, and apparently he was just doing it on the seat of his pants.
Obviously.
And
I think of a certain Gino Caputi who tells us movies are like building models, and this guy is building a model every single day. And apparently his life even then was at peril in the making of that movie.
Yeah. That scene where he knocks over the post on the freeway, and you could tell that, I was like, wow, he really
he was knocked unconscious.
Just watching it, I didn't have to read about him. Like, I'm sure that was just a mishap, and it looks great.
It was. And the funny thing is, apparently they had to get the car fixed so we can get back, and let's hope that Caltrans doesn't put the post back so we lose continuity.
Yeah.
And thank God for government, bureaucracy and stupidity.
There is something about the spirit of that movie. And again, I do like this idea. This is sort of, talking to us about police states in a way too. Like, both of these things are like making their police forces stronger and better. And although I think Dirty Mary Crazy Larry's is dumber in the sense so they can all just be like motorheads and drive their cops were just completely misguided and goofy. But I did think all of the municipal stuff with the mayor and the
actual mayor of Carson,
and the sort
opening a substation.
Yeah,
exactly. Very funny.
I really enjoyed the details on that, and the other racers, and just like, okay. For whatever reason, I was like, well, if we're just looking at it as car movies and not even as extensions of masculinity and what this means about the 70s, then for me, it's that one.
I think
too amateurish for me.
I kind of like the amateurishness. It seems more punk rock than the others, honestly.
It is.
No. This goes into the creeping terror territory. This goes into This goes into Ed Wood. It's like there is. For 40 minutes, there's no sync sound.
Yeah, but then to have it become like operatic, and it's crazy shit with the car chase.
No, the car chase is phenomenal. It really is.
But having those 2 parts. Sorry, Alex.
You know how we've talked about how the people like Tarantino and Paul Thomas Anderson really understand L.A. This guy understood that the industrial, dirty, filthy. And it's not really L.A., the outskirts, all those
Harbor Boulevard and all that. And what's so interesting is the just crisp, clean, precise unity of action. This guy's a great, because you look at these. I always pick on Fast and the Furious, but I saw this Guy Ritchie movie on Netflix with a big ass car chase. Or Michael Bay. One of these movies made it for Netflix, but just you watch it and you're just like, enough. I don't care. This movie had an A to B
but there's nothing
realism
satisfying about the news.
It just had an A to B realism where I didn't care about
93 cars actually destroyed in front of our eyes.
Just the details of the Cadillac getting hit in the dealership and smashed. Yes. This is some pretty heavy duty stuff he was doing.
The fact that they go through so much shit, like when he really does roll into that gas station or car wash at the very end and the wheel is just wobbling and it is knocked to shit. I was like,
what happened to your car?
I was like, that's genuinely almost like cathartic in the sense like
and a genuine laugh when the woman sees her smashed car.
So
and the manager, the poor
getting her manager. What it sets up, synced or not, I feel like it delivers the most fully.
It does.
It does in terms of wow. In terms of the wow factor for sure.
And the way he ends the movie, I can't remember what he's, when he's driving alongside the
See black you later,
kids. Or Billy.
Or Billy, right.
Yeah, or better luck next time or something.
No, he's like, see you around, or whatever. See you next time, I think is what it is.
That Cadillac catching on fire at the end.
Well, just the fact that they're cool with whatever. And
we're going to go to all they can think about is the party.
Which I loved. I was like, okay, I think their attitude is aspirational, and I feel like that's the closest to whatever.
And why it resonates today. It's just like, okay, your mom's car is total. Who cares? Let's get to the party.
They're just like, can we get it to the door? And I was just like, this is all. Again, I feel like it's the natural in between of Vanishing Point and Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry that I think.
Which is why I stick it at number 2.
Yeah, but I just think in the end it's the cleanest.
It's not as epic. I got to give Vanishing Point an epic quality.
I agree. But then my big question with Vanishing Point is to what end? And I liked all the.
It's still no matter what. It's still a travelogue through the American mindset of 1971 in a really focused, beautifully shot.
It
sort
is
of
really
propulsive way. Like, okay, I don't love Kowalski. He's a little flawed in a bad way, and like I don't quite buy his character.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I was really impressed at the end, was with the sort of cackling chickens as he's dead, and they just sort of looking on, as like waiting for the next big thing. And I thought that's a pretty good cultural commentary of where we are.
And especially he's their hero, and then he just dies, and they don't even, it's nothing internalized with them.
They're just waiting for the next one to come along. They just move on to the next person.
I thought that was a brilliant ending. So I liked, that's what sort of got me like, this is the best thing since The Graduate. I tempered my sort of spaz reaction. But again, I get very impatient with, I know, I'm just going to announce to the world, I get really impatient with dust flying in movies. It could be my exposure to Dukes of Hazzard. I just don't like yeehaw. We're peeling out and dust is flying in movies. So there was tons of that. I'm like, I don't want to. So for half the movie, I'm going, curse you, Alex Robertson. I don't want to watch a yeehaw getaway movie. I just didn't want to see it. And then it does morph into something where it's more of a cultural milestone. It does. I give it that. Whereas I think, okay, Gone in 60 Seconds is in the sense just of the sheer audacity of it all. But it
is its own thing.
Look what it has spawned. Gosh, we just have to move forward about 6 years and we get the Blues Brothers. A little bit more polished.
And it's way better than the Blues Brothers, I think.
I was like, I can't stand the Blues Brothers.
But that's just, that was, obviously that was John Landis's thing. I think that was his go-to. What do we do? Car crashes.
Yeah.
He does it in the, American Werewolf in London, like suddenly in Piccadilly Square, you've got a car,
Yeah.
What?
It doesn't. John Landis. That's a weird introduction to him because he just doesn't even seem in that level at all. He's in that. He's in more of that sort of homage. He's an homage guy, and his zaniness doesn't seem brave. It just seems like, Blues Brothers never seemed like this is amazing filmmaking. It just doesn't. You look at Gone in 60
the music.
Yeah, look at Gone in 60 Seconds and go, well, that's pretty freaking amazing. I whatever has happened in the first half, forget it.
Especially for a dude who seemed like the director. It seems like he's talking on 2 phones at once, smoking cigarettes, like barely hanging
with
on.
With his fake mustache and his mutton.
I loved it so much.
We gotta go.
Yeah. So I would say, especially those. I think all 3 films actually look pretty good.
But the thing is, I think too, with HB, am I saying it right? Toby, that was his nickname, Toby Halicki.
Yeah.
He has an appreciation for the art of the muscle car. He grew up in that environment. He had his own, with his uncle, their own wrecking yard.
Sure.
And in fact, I think at some point he was arrested as a young man for running a chop shop. So there is something autobiographical about this story.
You can tell.
I was going to say,
laying it all out there.
He seems to have an eye for. Wow, you have an eye for detail there, Toby.
Though I always made sure they were insured. That's how I roll.
That's how I roll. Very careful, very meticulous. We don't just do things. And therein lies the difference with somebody like him and a John Landis, who just, let's throw all caution to the wind. The bigger, the better, and just keep making everyone bigger, bigger, bigger.
Yeah, but there's no artist. I just don't find John Landis a very
artistry. That's exactly.
Filmmaker.
And I do find a lot of artistry in Vanishing Point and Gone in 60 Seconds. Honestly, I think both those films. Like Vanishing Point is beautifully shot. Like it's a really beautiful film.
And I would venture to guess George Miller took a page from that book for
as he should
for Mad Max.
Well,
sure.
And Spielberg, it's his favorite movie. And what does Spielberg make 3 years later?
Everything that's shitty.
No. Duel. But then his major.
Oh, Sugarland
Express, which is interesting because
that's another one.
It starts with a car chase, a very short car chase. Then it's a slow convoy through Texas. But the car chase is very brief at the beginning of the movie when they commandeer when William Atherton and Goldie Hawn do take over and take the officer hostage. But I do see that same spirit in some sense, These two people, she just wants her child.
Yeah.
Well, I can definitely see Vanishing Point in a lot of things, which doesn't always make me think that makes a good film. You can see a lot of Saving Private Ryan in a lot of things. I'm not saying it's not a good film. I liked the film, but I still just felt unsatisfied by it, and not because I needed there to be a happier ending. I don't know. I think unsatisfied because I don't think it fulfills what it sets up.
I think it does. I think it did set up.
I think it has more questions than it knows what to do
with. Well, again, your aspirations are for some grand meaning of life, but as a story of the American, not frontier, just the coast to coast American experience, or at least from
that
Colorado,
is a
San
grand
Francisco.
meaning. But they make it smaller. I feel like
I disagree
the end
with
makes
that.
it smaller.
I disagree with that.
Why?
Because I think it tells this tale of the turmoil underneath these beautiful golden hills. I think that it's there. It's like, okay, this really is sort of. Again, it's not as anywhere near Midnight Cowboy for sure, but Midnight Cowboy touches on these themes about the American experience. Okay, let's say he's ripping Midnight Cowboy off, but for a car chase movie, it's still there.
I get it, but here's the thing.
The scene with the tent revivalist.
Yeah, I get it. I thought that part was great. I liked I liked the guy with the snakes. I liked all of it. I liked her on the motorcycle, and he said, but I was just like, some of these are A, coincidental to the point where they're hokey, and B, it all feels external to Kowalski. So what is that saying? There's no beating heart of the film except what's going on around him. That's the interesting stuff. Well, and then we've got a car. So then I think, okay, is the car the internal structure of this film because it's what's holding him? Because
one could argue,
right?
Because everything around
him, of the film,
everything around him is the beating heart of the American experience in 1971.
And he is nothing. So he's literally nihil.
Nothing is not.
I think nothing is.
Yeah, I disagree.
I think he's a lost soul. I think in a sense
he
is. I think he is Yuri Zhivago. He's really more an observer of everything around him.
So
in a way. I mean,
don't think it's hokey. Level, I didn't find it hokey.
I don't think. No, I don't think that's
the rape
hokey. But
stuff I think is hokey.
I really do. He's observing. I mean, I really think maybe he's a guy that's looking for his place. He's that kind of person that if he's given a chance, he's changing hairstyles. He's changing clothing choices on a regular basis because he's trying to fit in. Well, this week it's goth. Next week it's punk. But he can never find. I know that's kind of a pedestrian explanation, but that's what I really noticed the second time, or this time around watching the movie, how he's, I don't know if he,
mutable.
In some ways admires the old prospector played by Dean Jagger.
I think he does. But I also think he admires the hippie, or at least he...
Well, yeah, but it's like, where is my place in all of this? And even with some interest watching the revival, watching the music, there's Bonnie, Delaney and
Rita Coolidge.
Rita Coolidge, David, what's his name from Bread playing piano, David Gates, Delaney and Bonnie, who did, I've got a never-ending love for you. I mean, and that great sort of 60s, 70s gospel-inspired white boy R&B.
But I think it's more about us as observers than him.
I don't think that's a problem with the film, though.
But do you think we're observing through Kowalski?
I don't know. I guess
maybe that's how I saw it when because I couldn't really gauge what it was, but he's looking at all these possibilities.
Yeah, I
feel like he's not a good guy for some reason.
He's not.
No,
great.
I wouldn't call him a good guy.
He's not a great guy. He's not. He starts the chase. It's his fault.
Right.
He's not a victim of circumstance, but he still is the American experience in 1971. And I think that makes the film better than your Smokey and the Bandit chase movies.
Well, I agree, but I just think, as a guide, maybe I just want Virgil as a guide, or something. I guess when I see it, I'm just like, I do see the wishy-washy ambivalence of the American male in Kowalski. But maybe that's something I don't like.
Do you think it is in the wake of what has gone on in this country at that point? The cynicism of and we're just what, a couple of years away from Watergate.
Yeah,
sure.
And he's not
really.
Well, and again, he's not standing for anything for sure. That's the question.
Just it.
He's not,
and that's what's interesting.
And what?
So that's why I think so. Him killing himself.
Why does he have to be there early, Alex Robertson? Why does he have to be there early?
Does he what?
Why does he kill himself to get there early? What's the point?
Because
what does that mean?
That's just.
I think
that's
code of honor.
That's his only code of honor. Yes, thank you. I think code of honor, or the thing, the tangible thing that he can do. Well, that's something I know I can do. I can't. I tried to be a good cop. I tried to stand up. I get fired. I go to Vietnam. I come back broken. I tried my hand at car racing. I nearly die. I mean, I'm good at all these things. I'm just not great at one thing. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none.
But also, it's just like that. I've tried all these ways to be American, and so maybe the only way that I can be truly American is just to do my job and get there on time.
And let me ask you something,
and
because I don't think this was
and die doing it precisely.
Because I really find his appearance very interesting. The black, the white boy fro, the white shirt, the black vest. I think it's an interesting choice. It's like is he some sort of wandering Semitic, Johnny Cash trying to find his way, the wandering Jew. I know it sounds crazy, but this guy.
Well, when his name is Kowalski, it sounds considerably less crazy, but
it's less crazy.
A little bit off the subject here, but it's still instrumental to our discussion of the 70s.
The soundtrack, what?
No. Gone in 60 Seconds. What the fuck is going on with Lyle Waggoner?
Oh, I don't know. Now you want to talk about the 70s, and you want to talk about a cheese.
They talk about his Playgirl spread, and then they talk about his
car.
car.
And they go steal his car.
Did he produce? What the hell is going on with Lyle Waggoner?
And we get
great question.
We get the neighborhood Cheech and Chong. Hey man, you got any uppers? Hey man.
Which should have been cheesy, but I was kind of in, especially because they really looked like
I thought Lyle
Waggoner
Waggoner was going to show up.
Yeah, same. I thought it was going to be like Mad Magazine. I'm whatever, and he bangs the head on the. Anyway.
We did get Parnelli Jones, but you have to be a Motorhead to understand who he was. But
I looked him up just because of that hair. I was like, that guy's hair is so bad. He's a real guy.
Oh, it was there was a good 70s comb over right
for
there,
sure.
baby.
Yeah.
That to me
Talk
was like,
about
now that's how you do a comb over.
Hiding the sins of the past. That hair. Anyway.
No, but the Ole Bronco, and there is an obsession with those cars. I've got a friend that's got what they call the bicentennial Bronco, and that thing is worth like $150,000.
Well, I did like the vibe too of just like, I'm going to steal all these things. It doesn't really matter, and I'm going to happily sell them to this Argentinian gangster, and I don't give a shit.
You would wonder why a studio chief didn't see that footage and go, okay, let's fix the beginning. It just seems like this could all be fixed with ADR. I mean, good ADR, where the lips actually line up with the dialogue. and reshoot the scene in the
but
park.
Think about it. If it
that
had
scene in the park,
sure,
where they're completely out of focus the whole time.
The whole time. But if it had, I don't think it would be as interesting of a film. Then the dumb dialogue would seem even worse. But the fact that it is out of focus, the fact that you've got nothing but the most hilariously basic exposition, and it's all not synced, and it almost like lends itself to this kind of distortion that was the only thing that's real is this great, like car chase, and is this experience that he has. And so
3 movies.
I do think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway,
your older brother's sister. I didn't like it.
Yeah. I think it's odd that of the 3 movies, this one really kind of represents, and not just the movie itself, but the man behind the movie.
Yeah,
for sure. That whole
sort
of American roll up your sleeves, nothing's going to stop me. I remember reading about some kid that became one of the top stunt coordinators in Hollywood who met Halicki as a young boy and said everything about that guy, he had such an ego, yet you never doubted he was going to get it done.
Till he
He
didn't.
was always talking.
Yeah.
Till he was crushed
Till
by
he
a
died.
water tower.
Right.
Yeah, right. God, that water tower.
Yeah.
So are we comparing the performances, or?
Well, yeah, we can.
performances?
I still
I don't
think.
know.
Have we resolved? We're never going to resolve it because it doesn't resolve
We
itself.
are
Roseanne.
Kowalski. Yeah.
We are never going to resolve the issues of the 70s into the 80s
think
because they
what
never
we're-
get resolved.
I think what we're going to have to do is just, film by film, try to find where it goes.
Wait, hold on. So it goes from this to the Road Warrior,
Yeah.
basically, or Mad Max. It basically goes
Max.
from this to Mad Max into the 80s of post-apocalyptic hell because of nuclear fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it never resolved.
And because of
Yeah,
our
and the
experience
whole
with
fear
war. Yeah.
And remember, these movies are really kind of being made right on the cusp of the whole oil embargo.
I was going to say
Right.
definitely
And
about
we've
oil
got
scarcity.
with Mad Max and the Road Warrior, the idea of the
So does
how
it resolve
reliant we
itself,
are.
given George Miller out there in Australia taking
No,
it to its
it doesn't, because George
hold
Miller.
on. Road Warrior is a perfect film much better than these, little building blocks. Road Warrior is my favorite car movie. If I'm gonna like a car movie, it's that one.
Well, I agree. Same.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
because
So I
I
think
think-
maybe it did resolve itself.
But you don't have, yes, I think you have to have, you've got to have the pioneers like the Kowalskis or even somebody like
But
Crazy
Roseanne's shaking her
Larry.
head because she doesn't think the issues of the 70s resolved themselves.
Okay, so what they do is they become, the issues resolve themselves, and because Road Warrior realizes that you can't be selfish, that you
Right.
actually do eventually have to
That you have
deal
to
with
do
the
it.
society to
Yes.
survive. Then yes.
Because it seems
So I'm right.
that the
Okay,
Well, no,
except it doesn't stay there. It
No,
doesn't
because
stay
you never,
there.
like human beings, they never leave well enough alone, and they
never
make
leave-
Mad
yeah,
Max
they-
Beyond
yeah.
Thunderdome.
I was just gonna say, and then next thing you know, you're in Thunderdome.
Right. But at one point, we reach a perfection in this theme.
I agree. Okay, so then for a second, it resolves itself when people realize one more time, you need other people, dummy. And that's the only way you're going to survive.
Yeah,
and you
because
can't
I
do
know
this on your
my
own.
friend Alex up there in the corner is going to say Kowalski Rakentowski. What's Max's last name?
Rocketowski.
Yeah. So there's even.
Rakentowski.
Do you think he's even drawing that parallel there?
It's possible.
It's possible.
A lot of the style in which the movies are shot.
Yeah.
And I even think a lot of what we see in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, a lot of the car chases, there's a big influence there.
Yeah, I was
at the
impressed
very least.
on a technical level with the helicopter, but I didn't love it. I didn't go, wow, that was amazing. It wasn't
Well, the
anywhere
helicopter
near.
became way more of a thing than it even needed to be. I'm like,
Right.
how long are we going to talk about the helicopter
and
before it even gets on the screen, for God's sake? That was
Right.
insane.
And then it runs out of gas.
Yeah, it was just like, in more ways than one. Anyway, I do think George Miller, potentially, I could see him taking Kowalski's journey and then giving it more of an existential, spiritual
He
core.
does.
Yeah.
He does.
So then I agree with that. I agree with you, Gina.
There. So,
Oh, they made up. Everyone.
all right. So now that I'm right again, let's go into performance. So of the three anti-heroes, Alex Robertson, who's your favorite? It's got to be Kowalski, right?
Yeah. Can it be who do we like best in jeans?
Must it always be with fashion with you? It's got to be
white shirt, white shirt and black vest. White shirt and black vest.
No, but best character, Roseanne Caputi. Be honest.
Yeah, Kowalski for sure.
Oh, but yet you like Halicki's film better.
I do.
But Kowalski's a better character.
Kowalski, again, like as I said, I'm not satisfied with all his. I'm not satisfied with the non-answers. I'm not satisfied with him as a guide in terms of the writing necessarily. But in terms of a presence, I think he's an interesting guy. I do think whatever.
Toby
is he's a squirrely motherfucker, and it's fun to watch, but he doesn't bring the same energy.
He's pretty cool. He's just again, I'm too distracted by the bad filmmaking because he needed better close-ups. He needed better filmmaking around him. You
barely see him. Like
he's a specter. You just don't quite get what he's about.
Like I was trying to show Raphael him and his wig and his mustache because I was like, this is good stuff. And it took forever to get to the next scene of him.
Coffee with a fork.
I was just like, there's just not enough of him, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I will say Kowalski. Let me just say, I do think Peter Fonda is looking cool. Obviously,
I like his laugh.
Iconic. Me too.
I like the spaz laugh, and the film does not live up to the promise of his spaz laugh.
I agree. I feel like Peter Fonda was up for it, and they just didn't give him the thing to do. Like,
no,
I want
Susan George. And for fuck's sake, she couldn't do an English or American accent. Just make her from England.
Yeah, it was like, why can't she spent time in Europe? Great, just have her be from there.
No, she was chewing on the American accent. It was terrible.
Oh,
yeah, it was bad.
She was. Your friend is a dazzler. Yeah. DAZZLE.
Anyway, Peter Fonda, I think, would have been cool if they had made any of his stuff even matter. Like if he had gone from dumb to psycho, like he should have, when he like pushes her down and made it seem like it was even a threat.
Yeah, he was not nearly mean enough for sure.
No, he should have been dumb and mean as shit.
Yeah,
and he wasn't.
It was a chicken shit movie. Sorry, Alex.
It really. Sorry.
And Adam Roarke,
since you made it,
he was interesting. He was interesting, except he's already you got a bad taste in your mouth from his psycho dealings with the woman in the shower.
Yeah, that was weird.
You can't root for him, but he was an interesting screen presence. I'll give him that. I just wish.
For sure.
He was one of those actors that never really caught on. I mean, he really was. I always think of Bradley Cooper in Licorice Pizza. I'm from the streets. I mean, you catch me, I'm from the streets. Yeah. Adam Roarke was literally from the streets. I mean, he came up, he was in a gang in New York. He was the real deal and found solace in movies. And he was doing all those Roger Corman biker movies. That's how he got connected with the likes of Jack Nicholson and Peter Fonda. But it was unfortunate that, I guess he was up for one of the roles in Easy Rider, but he said, I don't want to do any more biker movies. I want to, it's just one of those unfortunate things.
Yeah.
And he eventually became an acting teacher, and he gave us Lou Diamond Phillips. I kid you not. Yeah, well, he was a teacher, and that was one of his students.
Hey, I'm not going to say anything mean about Lou Diamond Phillips.
And I'm not going to say anything mean about Adam Roarke, except the movie let him down, too.
I feel like they were underused.
Because there was something there about with him and Mary, and it just didn't. Nothing gelled. Nothing gelled. It just.
I will say Barry Newman.
Yeah.
Newman? Is that right? Yeah. Newman. Anyway, yeah.
Same here. I like Barry Newman the best, and I liked Vanishing Point the best.
And he was used to the best effect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How about before we go on, the infamous missing scene from Vanishing Point?
Oh,
I don't know, has Roseanne
did you watch it, Roseanne?
Yeah, I watched it.
With Charlotte Rampling.
What do you think? Too much? Too much?
Too much.
I thought it was okay. I thought it was.
I feel like though that wasn't. I don't know. I thought it was fine.
I can see why they cut it, though.
The night before the day of the end.
But for some reason, it doesn't seem like his style. I don't know.
Right. It does feel like a scene
but the thing is
it breaks with him.
Women are such a, but the role of women in Kowalski's life. It's very interesting.
Is it?
No. I think so. You know, the girlfriend that dies,
right?
The blonde, the Godiva, even the sheriff's station. It's all women that are, you know, we're going to do what you couldn't do. We're going to put a stop to him.
Yeah, I
mean, it's all blonde women. I found that's an interesting choice. I mean, women seem to.
Is
really...
it?
Yes, it is. I'm
blonde women. What an edgy, thought-provoking choice.
No, but it's just like, why do they do it? I mean, why? You know, and you've got this swarthy-looking dude with his, you know, somewhat interesting Semitic looks. And yes,
so you're saying it's the blonde ideal, the blonde American ideal, keeping this poor Jewish boy down.
Eluding him.
Is that what you're saying?
And yet also leading to his demise.
I'm just asking.
I don't know. That's the thing. You know? I'm just like, I don't.
Don't you know? You say that these movies raise questions, and there's a question.
But that's what I'm saying.
Me.
With the women, I'm like, am I getting enough from the women, or even from the black characters? Where and let shout out to John Amos for looking cool. But
Cleavon Little was looking cool.
Cleavon Little was looking cool, but I was happy to see John Amos.
His part was a little contrived. I will say that.
Who?
Cleavon Little.
Really contrived.
Like, what is this guy doing out in the middle of the Nevada desert?
Yeah. Right.
I don't know. I think
this is where I thought some of it. I was like, this feels hokey. I thought a lot of his dialogue was pretty hokey.
I like that he was used. I know
what they were going for.
I like that he was used against Kowalski.
Is he like a Tiresias character, the blind leading the hero?
Yeah, but he starts being used.
But he even says blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
I roll.
Oh my God.
But it was true.
He was blind. They say that.
You know, being blind in the movie is no different than being blind in real life.
It's just like, we got the metaphor. This is why there was plenty of that in that movie. It's not like it was all cool.
No, it did have.
Well, though he was the paradigm for the Warriors and you know the other one.
That white challenger became such a. Challenger became a big to do in Hollywood lore.
Right.
Obviously,
anyway,
you know,
so
Tarantino, but
right.
All right. I'm gonna. So best supporting character, Alex Robertson. Let's just go each movie. Go, give me the best supporting character in Vanishing Point. Snake Man.
I say yes.
Yeah, Dean Jagger.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I felt that Dean Jagger really was a realized part, if that's what I'm looking for. You know, and he wasn't just a caricature. He seemed like the real deal. This is a guy that has lived in this desert for who knows how many years.
He seemed like a guy from Vale. Like, I really liked him a lot.
Something like that. And he would become like something that would be inspirations for somebody like George Miller in the Mad Max movies, a guy that's a scavenger that knows how to work the land. He knows how to get what he needs and to provide, you know, the services of others. As long as he gets his coffee, as long as he gets his chewing tobacco, he's a good man. He's a happy man. And I really think there is that envy in Kowalski looking at that guy, because he is the man that gets him out of the desert, tells him how to get out of the desert, how to get back to the highway. You know, he is whatever that figure is from Greek mythology, the old man that knows all, that has seen all.
Sheki, the Greek.
Sheki. Yeah, Sheki the Greek. So what you want to do is there's a guy sitting in front of a gas station, and you say to him,
I thought even if he didn't envy him, he did really admire him. Like, he did stop and see like his way of living as something valid, because he does help
and it's
them.
Just how
I'm going to go with Severn Darden myself. I liked.
Well, he was one.
Because I know who he is. I was like, oh, that's the guy from Planet of the Apes. Mm-hmm. That's the SOB from Planet of the Apes. So that was cool, you know. So I was happy to see him, and then I liked that, you know, he can play those sleazeballs in his sleep.
And that great scene when he just, you know, our job is to free the viper. That scene had such an impact. I don't know what it was. The way he delivers that line, and the vipers flying in slow-mo out of the freeing of the vipers. Yeah.
Zan, who do you got? Vanishing Point.
Dean Jagger.
All right. Moving on. Gone in 60 Seconds. I couldn't tell you. Honestly.
You know, I got to give it for up to Roddy McDowell. As small
Gone in 60 Seconds.
Wait. Oh, I'm sorry. The brother-in-law. That mustache. And just the weasel that he was.
He calls the cops.
I love that he calls the cops. I love that he's such a Playgirl reading, heroin selling faggot. Oh, sorry. Edit that out.
Okay.
But,
I'm not. You're going to own that one, Roseanne.
Oh, we're going to be rich. We're going to be rich. I mean, he really
wants the heroin.
He wants the heroin.
Lyle Wagner. For God's sake.
No, I really liked him.
He was. I wanted more of him. I mean,
actually, I felt like we got enough. I was just like, no, he
I just
sucks.
wanted more of his dialogue synced is all. I just wanted him to make more sense as a clear-cut character. But anyway. All right, Roseanne?
Same. Yeah.
Same? Brother-in-law? Well, there's only 5 characters in the whole thing.
I was going to say, there are so few characters. But I really did love him.
I got to go with him in terms
of...
and then...
Sorry.
In Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, best supporting character. Roseanne, start with you.
Well... I guess Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
You know?
Gotta be.
He's gotta be. Like you said, Roddy McDowell's good, fine, but you know, I like being around, even though it wasn't a really well written character. I liked being around him.
Think about Roddy McDowell. As a kid, I confused him with Paul Lynde.
Sure.
And it still seems like one of those showy performances.
Well, because he worked with the director before. That's
no excuse.
He
just comes across as the big ham actor.
But I think it was a less hammy performance. That's what I found interesting. He's ham to the bone.
I'm gonna go with Vic Morrow.
Arguing
if we're gonna go with the 2 supporting players, I would go with Vic Morrow.
I'm definitely going Vic Morrow.
Yeah.
I do kind of like the.
So where does Adam Roarke sit into this? Because he's a lead, isn't he? It should be Dirty Larry, Dirty Mary, Crazy
Drunken
Larry,
Deke,
and Deke,
Scuzzy Deke,
Drunken Deke, or Booze Hound Deke or whatever. I don't know.
Feels like wait, you're a lead. Why are you? Yeah, it's sort of relegated.
Well, what did I read that review? Was that on Wikipedia or something saying? So as a result, I thought Deke was gonna die. Nope, he doesn't. And I was like, right, same.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the 3 of them.
I was waiting for him to die in any number of shootouts.
Same.
And he doesn't.
There to the end.
And ends up wooing Mary, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right.
Which also could have been interesting.
So, who's got the best music? Alex.
Vanishing Point. I just like that music. It's It's from the soundtrack of my life.
Roseanne, did you notice any music? I didn't notice any music worth a damn. I like the gospel. Again, I'm going to give it to Vanishing Point.
There was no score. There was no score. It was just really more like...
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Vanishing Point for the gospel singers. I'm
going to give it to Gone in 60 Seconds for its subtly sort of pandering funk.
That's a re-release deal, though. Apparently, it actually had a soundtrack that they lost the rights to.
Really?
So they had all these songs that somehow they lost the rights to.
Now I'm almost curious to see the remake.
Yeah, I gotta say.
Yeah, I actually am. It's entire
which will probably make us appreciate the original even more.
I think so. Reading about it just sounded like one big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not last question. Second to last question. Best director, Alex Robertson.
Sarafian.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Vanishing Point.
Roseanne.
My man Toby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
Tobias.
That really is a tough one. But I'm gonna go with clear vision.
Sure.
Boy, that is definitely the finest stunt piece ever put on film for sure. you know.
Well, because the guy was, I mean, he really did live his life like that, obviously. They said he was a guy that...
His vision, though, and commitment, is like, that is pretty wild. It's wild. It really is. Just watching, I was like,
but
no,
he does have
cool.
movies.
So...
He does have movies between the original and the aborted sequel, so I'd be curious to see what he does in those.
Anyway, I got to go with him, just for sheer, like, wow, that, like I've said, that is crazy.
Sheer audacity.
Yeah.
I give it to him, but it just points off for the amateur hour in the beginning.
But the thing is, you know, he didn't sit around. Okay, and as Roseanne said, it's like Steve Jones and Paul Cook saying, we don't need to know
the chords.
You know, 1,000 chords. We just need to know 3 chords and we're good, you know? And just sitting in a room amped up on speed and just playing the same chord over and over until
the fingers bleed.
Till the fingers bleed, exactly. And then it gave us Bono. So,
All right, so the new question, the burning question is, Roseanne Caputi, will you watch any of these films again?
You know, probably not Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. I doubt it. Let's say if Vanishing Point and Gone in 60 Seconds were on TV or someone was watching it, I would watch them. And I would want to show, Rayfield, like, you got to watch this. This is great. Gone in 60 Seconds. Yeah, I'd watch Vanishing Point and Gone in 60 Seconds again. Yeah.
Same. So, Alex, these are your 3 favorite childhood films. What
Vanishing Point and Gone in 60 Seconds.
Have we beaten the love of Crazy Larry or Dirty Mary out of you?
Or did it beat itself out of something?
No, but I never did argue that they are lovable people because they're not. And I really, you know, I never paid attention to it the first time, except, you know, they stole a car and then they go on a chase through the walnut groves of Northern California outside Stockton and recognizing a lot of, you know, I mean, my work takes me to a lot of those places. So,
I definitely recognized Highway 4 and 60 and 160, so I was like, that's funny.
Even Sutter Creek at the very beginning of the movie, and Sonora. It's like, oh wow.
They're
those places.
They're all over. They're all over California for sure.
Yes, they are. And there is a very unique vibe to Northern California towns. I mean, I want to see somebody do a movie about that. I mean, somehow.
I'm your guy.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I've.
Simon Says too.
Well, things have turned out a different way, Alex. You'd have been the star.
No. That's, I don't act anymore.
Yeah. Anyway,
I live. I do.
All right. Well, there it is. There was a sterling podcast, everybody. Sterling. Thank you, Alex, for recommending these interesting films. Again, I have to say, I was gonna curse you. I thought, you know, these are banjo music movies. I don't want to see them, but they do. Oh, again, Dirty Mary.
Why do you assume that it's always a banjo movie? I mean, if I would have said Smokey and the Bandit, which I never did.
I don't know.
Well, in his defense, but honestly, I think I'm so glad I watched these, actually, seeing what it started out as and then what it ended as. With your Dukes of Hazzard and your Smokey and the Bandit, just to see, like, okay, this was a totally different vision in the beginning.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I was that kid that when I got my driver's license, went to the dirt fields and kicked up the dust because it was fun.
Cue banjos. That's where I was like, that's where the banjos come in. Alex.
Oh no, man, it was Foghat, baby.
All right, thank you, everyone. To you listeners out there, like and subscribe to all that baloney. Okay, bye, everybody. Thank you.
And keep it under 55, okay?
Thank you for listening to Fabulous Film and Friends. Copyright 2025, a Bel Air Films production.